I created a Stars and Stripes card with a distressed and grungy look, and I also have a tone-on-tone surprise technique. Let's start with the background. This is a slimline card. My card panel here measures 8 1/4 by 3 1/4 because I want it to be slightly smaller than the card base, which measures 8 1/2 by 3 1/2. On each side of my paper here, I marked every 1/4 of an inch. And I wasn't trying to do it on purpose, but I ended up with 13 stripes. I just knew I wanted to start and end with red, like the American flag, and it just happened to work out so perfectly. So I am using some mint tape to line up on each side of my card where I have my little marks that I made. And obviously I'm going to go every other one with red ink. I am using Distress Oxide inks. I have Lumberjack Plaid for my red here. And I'm just going to line up again on my little tick marks on each side and then just ink blend. So I'm going to speed this up just a little bit for the rest of these. But I do want to say the inspiration for this card actually came from another card that I had made using products from scrapbook.com. They shared it last week, and it was the my Clover card that had rainbow stripes, and it had glitter or shimmer flakes and all kinds of things. And when they shared it, they said, now imagine using a Stars and Stripes card, making an American flag card or whatever, using their nested dies. So that's what I'm doing here. So they actually gave me an idea off of one of my other cards, and I just think it's really fun sometimes to get your ideas that way. I'm going to keep working down. Now, something that happened, which is not a big deal for this card because this card is going to be distressed and a bit grungy. But if you want this to be pristine, change out your tape, because as I was moving down, I noticed right there that some of the ink is transferring from the back of the tape to my white parts of my card, which again, not a big deal here. It was very light, but if you want this crisp and clean, change out your tape. Let's work on this bottom last piece here. And then we have this fun striped, red and white striped card. This would be good for Christmas too if you did some stripes like this. That'd be a lot of fun. Now let's do some grunging up with our vintage photo Distress Oxide ink. I started off light. I wasn't quite sure how grungy I wanted to go and how distressed I wanted to go on this card. But as I was putting it on there, I was like, yeah, let's go more. So I just was adding more and more. And then what's kind of left on my little blender tool after I do the edges, I'm going to lightly go over the white stripes like through the center, just so it softens the white a little bit, but I'm not adding a ton of color. So I think that is looking really, really good. Now I want to do some splatter with this vintage photo. So I'm just going to press my ink pad down on my work surface, spritz it with a little bit of water. I'm just using a distress sprayer, and then I'm going to splatter this onto the background. And this was just kind of, for me, again, I didn't know how far I wanted to go. So I start off with a little, and then I can decide, oh no, I want more, and I definitely wanted more. So, if you are a little bit nervous about doing something that's a bit grungy, start off with a little, because you can always add more. So that's kind of what I was doing with this card today. And then in my splatter box, we're going to add some shimmer and shine, and I am splattering on Distress Spritz in Fossilized Amber because I am going to add gold to this card, and this is how I'm going to do it. Because I love Fossilized Amber Distress Spritz. I think it is beautiful. So now that that's done and dry, I am going to distress these edges with my scissors. And I love that some of the white cardstock is going to shine through. If you don't want white cardstock to shine through, after you distress it with scissors, then just take your ink pad and run it along the edges, or your blending tool or blending brush and run some ink along the edges. But I like the white. Okay, I'm using the Nested Stars die, and I've die cut the 3 smallest stars. I'm ink blending these with Uncharted Mariner Distress Oxide ink. And then I'm going to come in with some black soot because I want to darken up those edges. So grunging up the edges just a little bit. But I think this Uncharted Mariner is such a beautiful blue. I'm a person who loves teals and aquamarines, and this does have a little bit of teal to it, but I also feel like it's a really good true blue at the same time. It's kind of weird. So I'm going to go light, not light-handed, but don't go in far on the stars. I really want to keep it around the edges. And then I'm coming back in with my blender tool that has the Uncharted Mariner and then blending back over a little bit just to soften up the edges of where that black soot comes into the center of the star. So let's do the small one here. Just going around the edges, keeping it on the thinner side because I really don't want to lose all that gorgeous blue. And then let's splatter this again with the Distress Spritz in Fossilized Amber to add some nice gold on this background. So this is a very, it's distressed, it's grungy, but I love that it's going to have some sparkle, and we're going to do another way to add some sparkle. And then just distressing the edges of all of the stars. I'm just going to show you this large one, but I'm going to do it for all 3. Then I am using Tim Holtz Falling Stars stencil and coming in with Vintage Photo. I knew I wanted some more stars on the background. I just was deciding what color do I want to do it in. I'm going to keep it in that distressed look using the Vintage Photo. I think it's gorgeous. I feel like you could come in probably with the Uncharted Mariner even softly and get a good look with that. But I really decided that the only blue stars I wanted were the ones that we just ink blended and distressed. And here I'm just, again, deciding how much of the stars do I want. So I just kind of keep going back and forth and checking and seeing where I have some open areas because I kind of know my layout of where my larger stars are going to be. And so I don't want to hide all of my stars that I'm stenciling on behind that. So I'm just going into some places that I know will show for sure. And I think that turned out great. Okay, using the bold numbers with flowers dies, this is all scrapbook.com dies, I have die cut the number 4, and then using the modern alphabet dies from scrapbook.com, I die cut the letters TH. I die cut these from Mixed Media white cardstock because it's nice and thick. And I want these guys to have some some dimension, that's the word, without having to add foam adhesive behind them. I do end up doing that for the number 4, but that's because I have to do it over a star. But these now are going to have a little bit of dimension. Then I die cut the word happy from the Happy Mother's Day die, and I left that in my paper, and I'm just going to ink blend one of them, even though I'm going to glue them together. And then I'm using Fossilized Amber Distress Oxide ink. This is the start of that tone-on-tone technique. So I'm ink blending all of these because I want all of this to be gold. So in my splatter box, now that they are all inked up, I am going to spray on top of it in its coordinating color with Distress Spritz Fossilized Amber. This is going to give us that shiny gold look, and I'm going to use my heat tool to dry everything. Now here comes in the tone-on-tone. So the number 4 is dry now with the Distress Spritz. So it's shiny, it's shimmery. I first thought I was going to use Vintage Photo, but I changed my mind. I am coming back in with the Fossilized Amber Distress Oxide ink, and it's very chalky and matte, and I am going to stencil some stars onto this. So we are going to have this really cool tone-on-tone look on the number 4 where the background is shiny and gorgeous. Look at that. I got to add some more stars, but look at how pretty that is. And then we're going to stencil on with this matte ink, this chalky ink, on top of it. And this is my most favorite thing on this card, you guys. Now I'm like, I need to do this on everything. I love it. So I'm going to add a couple more stars in a couple areas on the 4 because it needed more. So when you're looking straight on, you don't really see it, but when you turn it into the light, that's when you get to see like the full glory of how awesome it looks. What a fun little surprise. I was debating it. I was like, is it going to be cool? That's why I thought I was like, maybe I'll do Vintage Photo, but I'm so glad I just did the matching ink to this. So again, we ink blended all of these, then spritzed them, and then inked them again, all with fossilized amber. Look at how fabulous that is. Oh, I love it. All right, let's glue the word happy together. I die cut this twice so it has some dimension to it. So I'm adding a little bit of glue. I don't normally glue them this way, but these are tiny and it worked out. So I added glue to the background ones, and then I'm just popping in the ink blended ones and the ones that we also spritz, so they're nice and shiny and gold looking. And I'm lining them up on top, and this went really fast and nice. And then I'm just gonna flip this over and then pop them out of the back, and then I can just pop out the little circles or the little spaces that we don't need in the A and the two P's. So really simple and quick to glue those together. I love this. And then once that's done, we're gonna start putting this card together because super simple, super easy, but I love the look of it. Let's adhere this background to our card base, which again is 8.5 by 3.5. Our card panel was 8.25 by 3.25. So it's going to give us a nice little white frame around this, which I think is fabulous. And I did speed this up a little bit just to put this together. I'm going to add 1mm foam adhesive behind the largest star and behind the smallest star. The medium star will be adhered directly to the background, just nice and flat, but I'm going to tuck it under that little arm of the star. I do end up scooching it over a little bit more. And I will trim the excess off that's hanging over the sides of the card. I'm just going to add this little bit of adhesive behind, but I'm not going to glue this down yet until I get my sentiment in. But essentially this will kind of be the layout. So I'm going to lay the number 4 and the TH for fourth across the stars like this, and I think that looks really, really nice. But let me scooch over this star just a little bit more. I'm going to add 2mm foam adhesive around the number 4 because it has to go over that large star that's popped up. So I'm just going to put it in a few places, and then I'm going to try to center that really kind of from top to bottom in the card. So I'm going to use my reverse tweezers because it keeps my fingers out of the way. And I think I'm going to scooch it over. There we go. And then I can just press that down. And then I will use some liquid glue for the TH and adhere that down. And then we have the word happy. Now, I also mentioned that we were going to add a little bit more sparkle. So I am going to use some Shimmer Flakes, but I'm going to use it like a sequence rather than like a shaker material. And I'll show you that in a minute. I'm going to put a little bit of that on the stars. But I think it's really cute because, again, the original idea for this came from another card that I made a shaker with using the Shimmer Flakes. So I'm going to add a little bit of that. I was trying to use my Pick Pro tool, but then the glue stuck to it and took it off. So I now need to use my reverse tweezers. And what's cool about having this line is I'm just lining it up at the bottom of that red stripe. Makes it super easy, just trying to get the spacing correct. And sorry, my head is in there. Let's get on to this next letter here. I liked this small happy. So I die cut that from the Happy Mother's Day die. It does have a shadow behind it that you can use. I just did not want to use the shadow for this. I liked it just very kind of clean and simple this way. So that's why I chose to use this. But I love these nesting dies. I have tons of nesting dies from scrapbook.com, and they just work for layouts like this. I love that you get all those different sizes. I feel like it's a great die for like the money that you spend, because even though it's all the same image, but you have multiple sizes, so you can create really any card design with it. And I just absolutely love that. Now I'm going to place that star here. And then I used the Pot of Gold Shimmer Flakes. I dumped some out into my lid because I wanted to use different sizes. I'm just showing you on the smallest star here, but I did put some on the big and medium star as well, just using my Pick Pro tool. And then look at that shimmer and shine, and then look at that number 4. Oh my gosh, you guys, I love that. Tell me what you think about that technique. Do you like that? Like, I just love it. I think it turned out fabulous. But I love this whole card design. I think it is so much fun. Thank you guys so much for stopping by and watching. I hope you feel inspired by this project. Thank you again for all of your support, and I hope you have an amazing day.